Alright guys, let's chat about the puppet pin tool. I'm going to bring in some footage here. We're going to go to import, we're going to go to file, we're going to find this file somewhere in here. Okay, this is the doctor file. You're going to be working with this in your quiz. When you import it, I want to make sure I import this as composition retain layer sizes and hit import. When it brings it in, it's going to bring a folder with all our layers, and it's also going to bring a composition in. It's got everything set up here. These are all the layers of this person. So we're going to do a very basic animation using this guy. If we open up the composition, you can see our composition settings are really funky. It's set to whatever the Illustrator file was using at the time. So the best way to get this is to grab all these files, copy them. Let's go make a new composition, and we'll just paste all those layers inside of there. And there they are. So first thing we want to do is kind of get this sized up for this character here. So let's create a null object, and we're just going to use that to kind of move everything. We're going to parent everything to that null object so we can move it. Now we can just grab our null, move him down here, and scale up our null, and everything's kind of taking its cues from that. If we didn't do that, all these objects have their own anchor points. You can see there's one here. If I click on the leg, this anchor point's here. It would scale relative to those anchor points. For instance, if I grab all these and scale these down, you can see them scaling from their individual spots, which is not what we want. So now that we have them all linked to the null, when we make an adjustment to the null, it's all this single anchor point here. That's where it's all pulling from. So we'll kind of scale him down to the size that we want to use. If I zoom in here, we scale it up to 228%. You can see that when I scale this way up, even though it's a vector, it's very blurry. Well, if you remember what we did when we imported these footage like this, these vector layers, we had to turn on the continuously rasterize button, which is right here. So if I scale this way up so you can see this, and I turn on continuously rasterize for all these layers, now it's sharp, very sharp. We can scale this up forever, and we have no resolution loss. So we'll scale this down to about there. That's fine. Let's get our background in place. Throw a background on here. And because I'm anal, kind of throw a ramp on there. Why not? Gradient ramp this. We'll do a radial ramp. We will do, let's just set them both to white. And we'll darken up the bottom one a little bit. Okay, looks good. So we're going to do a walk animation on our little character here from left to right, and then I want him to point at the board like this. So this is going to be our final resting spot. This is where we want him to be. So we're going to kind of animate this backwards. But first, we got to kind of label all these to figure out what's what. So this is going to be our left arm. This is going to be our torso. This is going to be our right arm. This is going to be our left foot. This is going to be our right foot. Mouth. This is going to be our board. Right pupil. Right pup, because I don't know how to spell pupil. Left pup. Left eye. I guess right eye. Kind of getting this prepared here. Head. And nothing? What is this? Oh, different face. Look at that. Extra guy. Pretty awesome. Okay, we don't need that layer. Okay, so next step is to get this guy rigged. Okay, so his left arm right now is an independent thing, and when we rotate this arm, it's kind of doing its own thing. We kind of want to set this up to make sure our anchor points where it would be attached to his body. So if we want to use the rotation to animate this, which is pretty easy, then it's rotating off that point where it's attached. So his torso we'll leave right in the middle. That's fine. Right arm, we're gonna again we're using our pan behind tool up here, by the way, to move these anchor points. We'll attach this to his arm there, so when this rotates, looks good. Okay. Left foot be attached about there, so okay. Right foot, same thing. And actually, I'm gonna delete this foot. I'm gonna duplicate this guy because he's gonna walk this way. We kind of want him facing his torso facing this way. His other foot looking like this straight on is gonna look weird when we animate him walking to the right because it's gonna like his foot is pointing straight and shuffling, which is kind of odd. So let's delete that. Duplicate this guy and bring him over. Okay, so now those anchor points are right. I'm gonna rename this one left foot. His mouth, that's a perfectly fine anchor point. Board, we're not going to rotate the board, so that's fine. It's not attached to anything. Pupil, that's fine there. We're not going to rotate these, so not a huge thing. Same with eyes. His head would rotate down his neck, which is about right here. So if we want this to go rotate, and we might bring this down a little bit further even, so when it rotates, it's not quite as, if we bring it way down, what does that look like? It's not really much of a difference. It just gives us a little more subtle rotation. Okay, so everything's got its anchor points set. Now we need to start parenting things to the right spots. So both of his eyes, pupils, mouth, those will all get parented to his head, which will get parented to his torso. We're using the pick whip to parent these things. You could also select this. His, what else? Board is parented to nothing. Left foot, right foot will get parented to his torso. Right arm to his torso. Left arm to his torso. Okay, so everything has a parent now, except our torso, which is parented to our null. So our null, everything still goes back to our null as the final piece, so we can move everything around. We don't need this to be parented to the null though. So if we want to move the whole guy here, that's what we'll use. Pretty simple. So now if we want to rotate our head at all, our eyes and mouth and everything come with it, right? So there's a few different ways we can animate this. We want to use the puppet pin tool for his arms and legs, and we'll use kind of the rotation and position movements for everything else while he walks over, right? So we will set up the movement to go from left off the screen. I'm going to go off the screen over. So let's just start here. We'll do a position move here over about 4 seconds, all the way to this side. And we're just going to hide this easel for now. Can I get rid of that? Okay, so now we need to, we know this is how we want everything to end. So let's go back to the beginning here. And let's do find his legs, left foot, right foot, and we'll pin these. We'll grab our puppet pin tool up here, and we're going to pin the parts that would bend on his leg. So his ankle, his knee, and where it's attached, which is way up there, but it seems to be awfully high. We don't really need that much. Let's do right here. Because when this comes up, that'll be fine. This is his knee. Look how it'll be a very bendy walk. So there, and then we'll do the same thing on this one. So there, right where it's attached. Okay. So let's animate kind of a walk cycle for this guy. Let's focus just on our feet. I'll hit U to bring up all of our puppet pin positions here. And we're going to start with them being in a walking position already. And we're just going to kind of loop these. So let's set this guy up as if this is back. Okay. So this is his. The problem with this too is that these are going to have to cross at a certain point. So let's do this. Let's move this whole layer over just a hair. You can see this outline here. When I move that, you can see there's a funky little outline here. If I grab my mesh, when I go to my pin tool, this expansion set to -1, and that's what's doing it. I need to set this to 0 on both of these. So now when I move this, it was getting offset by a pixel. Looks like it's still doing it. So let's get rid of these. I might have to completely repin these. Right foot, left foot, just delete these puppets. All right, let's do this again. Now with this selected, expansion set to 0. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so now if I move these, it still gets funky. Probably because it hates me. Okay, let's put it in position before we do that then. Okay, so let's position these feet a little bit closer together. Okay, because when these cross, they're going to have to be a little bit more noticeable here. So, okay. Now let's pin these guys. Left foot, pin, pin, pin. Right foot, pin, pin, pin. And we'll go through and we can starch this just a hair. Just in these spots that won't bend in between much. So now if I move this guy, looks like my knee gets a little funky, but let's bring back up my starch here. I think I have my extend too much. Let's set it to like 8. Oops, not 168, just 8. Just do a little bit on the sides here. And the bottom of my shoe isn't really going to bend much. And then up here. Okay. How does that look? A little bit better. Just try testing the kind of bendiness of this, see how distorted it gets. We just got to be careful. Okay, looks good. Let's do the same with this one. Starch the sides here. Oops. Starch the middle part under the knee. Just the bottom of the shoe, because I know the bottom of the shoe isn't really going to bend all that much. And almost the back of the heel here too, actually. Let's grab this one. We'll do the back of the heel. We'll add one right there. Okay. Looks good. So now we can grab our pin or our puppet and we'll start with this leg back. Okay, good. So that's going to be its starting position. And this one's going to be kind of pointed forward. So again, we need to have these kind of cross. Okay, I'm going to make a solid and bring it down so I can see kind of where the mock floor is going to be. And I'll delete this after, but I want to make sure when it stops that that's the point it's going to stop at. So right foot, let me grab this puppet, grab these again. Kind of adjust these guys just to make a kind of a walk cycle here. Okay, looks good. Let's go forward. Let's actually get rid of this movement on this null for now. Let's just focus on this cycle. We'll move forward about a second. We can adjust this later. We're just going to go to the second position. And then let's go to 2 seconds. We're going to go fully to the next position, and then we'll go through and kind of fine tune. So let's grab this puppet here. We want this knee to pretty much end up where this guy was. About right there. Our right foot, we want to come back. So that's our kind of our walk animation, but we're going to have to fine tune this halfway. So if we go halfway to about here, this foot needs to stay on the ground here. So we kind of need to adjust these 2 points until it lets off. Something's got to be on the ground while this one moves over, right? And it lets off as the other one hits the ground. So once that's off, so it's still on the ground, I may even stick it further on the ground here to about there. Oops. Yeah, let's put that on the ground here. By this point, let's get this foot on the ground. Kind of just going through this cycle and adjusting. So by here, this is about to leave the ground. I need this to be touching the ground. Right? So right when it hits it is when this comes up. So now we kind of have that. Now we need to go back. Okay. So let's preview that. Okay. So keep in mind when you're looking at these feet, if you wanted to do this really well, that just keep in mind something's got to be touching the ground at all times. Okay. Let me bring up my pieces here. Okay, looks good. So now we need to just essentially get them back to their starting point, which is this. So I'm going to copy these, kind of find the ending points here. Oops. Paste them back into these layers. Copy you, paste them in. Okay. So essentially, we have our starting point that we copied over here, so we're going to end there too. That way we can just copy this over and over. So we have this part of our walk that looks good. Okay. Now we need to do the same thing we did for this section here, right? So as it's crossing, need to make sure that this touches the ground. So maybe about here, you're still going to be, you need to be on this guy. This still needs to be touching the ground. Right? Just kind of angling this down until that hits the ground. So when this gets over there, I need to angle this for the heel to hit first, because that's how people walk. So let's do this more over. Actually, it needs to go before that. So the first thing that kicks up is going to be this heel, right? Okay, so once this heel hits right there, now this can release. Okay, so grab you. Oops, gotta click our mesh. Obviously that's too fast, so I might just let it drag and let it find its way there by itself. Oops. Kind of adjust my final spot here. Actually, those need to be the same as this, so I need to keep these all the same. Okay, so once that hits, that looks good. This peeling off looks a little awkward there, so I might do one little final adjustment here. It's kind of hard. It's hard to tell what you should do. Okay, let's see how crazy that looks. So now that we have these done, essentially since these starting points ends, we kind of have a loop here, right? So once it hits this point, we need to keep going. So if I grab these guys and Actually, what I need to do is grab all this stuff and copy it or paste it here. I'll just get an exact copy and I can just keep, let's see here. Grab all of it and paste it right on top of it. It'll just keep creating this cycle, right? So I have my full walk cycle. I'm just copying the same thing over and over. I'll just do the same thing down here. Copy all this, paste it on top of itself. Paste. Gotta be careful what we're selecting, I think. Copy, paste. There we go. Paste. Paste. Okay, so we have this over 20 seconds. So we're gonna need to change this, but we want a long walk cycle. So let's just see what this looks like. Not great, but you know what? For this purpose, it'll be perfectly fine. Looks good. Okay, pretty crude. So now it's the speed. That's a pretty slow. So let's grab all these guys. Let's hit Alt and hold it, and grab the end here, and we can speed all these up, right? So if we want to go through 4 walk cycles in maybe 4 seconds, let's see what that looks like. See how fast that goes. Preview this. That's a pretty good speed. Let's turn on motion blur on all these layers. Kick that on. See what this looks like. So it's a pretty, this kicking out on this heel is pretty awkward, but you know what? Whatever. It's just a quick little thing. So now we just need to get his endings point essentially. So let's go bring up, instead of ending here, we want to end. Let's see how weird this is. If we just take this final one and just place this into a normal standing position, how weird would that look? Whatever, that'll be good enough. Okay, so now it ends. Let's change this one too, see if that looks really weird. Okay, that's a decent standing position. Okay, so now we have his walk cycle down. Looks good, that's the hardest part. And let's do the movement now. So we will pull up our left foot, right foot. We're done with our, I guess we could keep that if we really want to. Here's our, I'll just bring the opacity down. There's our floor. Why not? Let's create a floor. Okay, so we have our left foot, right foot. We end here. I'll just set this. That way we know this is where our walk cycle ends. Go to our null. Position will end here. And we'll have our starting position. Let's figure out where we want him to end. We'll bring our board up. Board. I'm just going to set this to the back. Okay, and we will move his position to about here, right in front of the board. And we want a starting position. What happened to our feet? Now I'm nervous. Oh, I know what we need to do. So when it moves, that puppet tool really messes everything up, right? It gets really funky really fast. So let's go back before we move this. So now we have our walk, right? Looks good. We need to pre-compose those. So let's grab our feet, our left foot and our right foot. Pre-compose these to feet now that we have that cycle down. Okay, and we'll parent those feet to the torso. So now when our null moves, let's bring back our board, shift you over, and we'll have you start way back here. Now that it's pre-composed, we can do that movement and it's not going to look weird. Okay, so let's preview this and see what it looks like. His arms aren't moving, so that looks really weird, but his legs are, and that's what's important. Okay, looks good. Now we just need his arms to move. We may do a little head bobbing. So let's do this. Let's get his arms going as well. Let's do this. Let's end this move because we're gonna do his arms while he stands there, and then we're gonna do the exact same thing with this puppet tool with his arms. So we'll grab left arm. We'll grab our pin. We'll do one up here, one on his elbow, one on his wrist. We'll do right arm, one up here, one on his elbow, one on his wrist. Okay. And let's do left arm, right foot. Yeah, okay. So this is a halfway decent starting position for these arms too. So that's good. Let's kind of it created these left arm, created our keyframes already here. So let's kind of scroll forward to where this next leg stops there. And I want this arm to be fully forward at that spot. So let's bring, oops, left arm, mesh one. We'll bring these guys forward. And we want this guy to come back. We're not really going to see that because it's going to be behind, but that's fine. Okay, so that's forward. You can see that it just goes straight over, so we need to kind of make an adjustment on this left arm. No one really walks like that. That's really awkward. So he kind of needs to swing it, right? So the arm needs to be straight down about halfway through. So if we go halfway through, bring this guy down here. That's a really weird walk, but you know what? That'll have to do. Okay, so there's one, and let's scroll forward to the next part where it stops, about there. And let's get this back to its original position. We'll copy these, paste them. We need to go and copy, make sure that we're creating keyframes for every piece. Oops, and we'll go to the end and paste these as well. Okay, so same thing, halfway through, we'll copy these and paste them. Man, copying and pasting keyframes gets pretty annoying pretty fast. Okay, so we pretty much just copied that, so it, oh, that's going to be a little weird. Not horrible. Whatever, it'll do. Okay, it'll be a really weird walk. So let's do the same thing we did before. We'll copy these, paste them, copy these, paste them, copy these, paste them. Go back, copy these, paste them. We're essentially just looping this animation. Paste them, paste them. Okay. So here's our pretty crappy walking animation. Okay. Now we're going to have to do the same thing to the arms that we did before. So we'll pre-compose this. We can just keep it as left arm. Pre-compose this, keep it as right arm. We did our feet as one. They were together, which isn't super, not a horrible thing. So, okay, now we can finally do our movement, right? So we'll end here. We will shift you over off the screen. So now when you walk on screen, your arms aren't moving. Why are your arms not moving? What happened to our arms? Something's wrong. All right, let's go back out to before we pre-composed these. Okay, you're moving here. You're looking good. Recompose. Move. Oh, we didn't move all attributes. We need to move all the attributes with our layer. So that, there we go. We'll do right arm. If we keep them all, they stay here and they get really messed up. So let's keep them, move them all into the, that way when they come in here, you can see all that information came this time, which is what we wanted. Now we can go grab our null, position move. Whoop. Oh no, our arms. We don't have our arms parented. Parent our arms to our torso. Now we can move it back off the screen. Now we have a full walking animation. It's not perfect, but you know what? We've been doing this for like 20 minutes. Looks fine to me. Okay, the cool thing now is we can add some head bob in here if we wanted to. So let's grab our head. Let's just do position moves. One here. Starts about here, so we'll create one here. Bring our head down a little bit. Bring our head up a little bit. Just a little micro movements. Every time his feet hit the ground, I'm just kind of creating one. Just going up and down and up and down. Okay, what does that look like? So his torso is perfectly still, which is kind of funky. If we rotate this at all, does it get really weird? Yeah, we might be able to do some micro rotations just to give it a little bit of sway back and forth. So let's do this. Add a little bit of rotation. Just do like one pixel. We'll go -1. I'm just aligning this, holding shift to align where these other movements are. To 1, to -1. Just a tiny little bit of movement. To 1. Oops. To -1. And to 0 at the end. Let's easy ease all these just for fun. Okay, there's our walk. Not bad. All right, so once he hits his final position, which is here, we want him to point to the board, right? So let's grab our right arm, which is here, and extend this out. Now we're going to need to point this. So from here, let's do like a half a second move on this pin. We can't see our board anymore, so it's kind of a problem. But we'll do kind of a two-stage movement here. So we'll have them go up like this, and then out. I'm going to easy ease all these guys, by the way. We'll go to my left arm. Easy ease all these. Should have done this before. My apologies. So right arm, we need to do the feet as well. Easy ease all this stuff. Okay. So what does that look like? Preview this really fast. I'm going into probably too much detail. You don't need to do this much detail when you do your quizzes. I just want to see that you can make this guy do a general walking animation. Use that puppet tool. The big thing is pre-composing these layers so that movement doesn't mess it up. Okay, a little slow. Let's grab the right arm. And this final movement will speed this up just a bit. Okay, looks good. And then I will do, I know it ends here. So if I set my cursor to where it ends, it's going to stay there. So I know when I go over to my left arm, I can finish out whatever movement I want. So I think this is going to end straight down. So let's just do a little bit of a movement here. A little micro movement. Okay. Looks good. His arm gets incredibly long, but looks good to me. Okay, I think last thing we had a little track mat on this guy, so we'll do a message on here right when he points. So let's create a new solid. Hit OK. I'm going to hide it, and I'm going to mask it out so it covers these points. I'm just going to create point here, point here, point here, point here, end it. And then I might need to adjust some of these. I think these need to come out a little bit. This might need to go up. Just kind of making sure these are right on the edge. Okay, looks good. So now if I show that, I just created a solid right on top of that. I'm going to use this as a track mat of the board. Bring up my track mat options. Select this as... I'm sorry, I'm not going to do board. This is going to be on the text. Track mat. I need to create my text. We'll hide this for now. Go to my text tool. Make some text. We will have, this is going to be below everything else. Above the board though. These can both come to the bottom. I'll grab my track mat. I will put it above the text. I'll tell the text to invert that, or I'm sorry, alpha mat it. So that's the thing I drew. So anything that comes in contact with this layer essentially is going to be shown. So hide that so we can move this layer off. So right when he points, right when he goes to point, I want this to fly in. So I'll do a position move from here to there. And I want it right when it hits. Boom, that's where I want it to hit. Slide this guy off. And I'll ease these. I'll go through and smooth this out a little bit. Okay, are we done? I think we're done. Last thing, motion blur. Okay, I think we're good. I think that's our animation. We have a walking character. Boom. Looks good. You know, do your best. This is one of the harder ones. It's very tedious. The big thing is to, once you have the loop down of the left foot right foot loop, before you move your null from going left to right, pre-compose that so it doesn't get all funky. Okay, that's the big thing. All right, that's kind of some basic puppet tool action, some how to rig a character a little bit. The very basics. This stuff takes a really long time to get looking really good. So good luck. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.